Welcome back to another edition of the Saturday to Sunday Football Podcast. I am Paul Perticchese, and thank you for joining me as always. Our summer scouting series concludes tonight with the 2025 NFL Draft running back rankings, setting the stage for the upcoming college football season, the pre-draft process, and everything prior to the 2025 NFL Draft. If you have missed the previous 3 episodes, I have given my summer scouting, my quarterback, my tight end, and my wide receiver rankings. We will conclude tonight, as I said, with the running back rankings, overview of the position, top 20 or so ranking, detailed scouting reports on all 20 of those prospects as well. Really looking forward to the start of the college football season. Obviously, we have the teaser with week 0, and then Labor Day weekend, we really kick into high gear. I have lined up next a intro to the college football season and a snapshot of the top prospects in college football with arguably the best in the business, Dane Brugler of The Athletic. Look for that to drop next week as well, prior to the real kickoff of week 1 of the college football season. So really looking forward to having Dane back on the podcast here and kind of hear his takes on the quarterbacks, running backs, wide receivers, and tight end prospects that he has in his top 50 overall big board, that he has in his individual positional rankings as well. Some guys he thinks he could emerge and just kind of set the stage for this season from someone who really respect his scouting prowess and obviously all the connections and inside sources he has to learn so much about these prospects. And then obviously, the beast that he puts out, his NFL draft guide, next April is the best draft guide out in the industry. And there is nothing really particularly close if you're looking for both sides of the ball, offense and defense. So let's get right into it. If you've been watching on YouTube, you will see me after I go over my rankings, kind of screen share my scouting reports. Those are the basis of what the new scouting notebook will be, which will be released sometime in the next week or so. More details to follow on that. But the same way we've done the previous 3 episodes, share my rankings and then screen share my scouting reports as I go through them one by one. So let's jump right into it. Here are my 2025 NFL draft rankings. Number 1 right now is Ashton Jeanty out of Boise State. Number 2 is Omarion Hampton out of North Carolina. Number 3 is Ollie Gordon out of Oklahoma State. Number 4 is Quinshon Judkins out of Ohio State. Number 5 is TreVeyon Henderson out of Ohio State. Number 6 is Jaydn Ott out of California. Number 7 is Donovan Edwards out of Michigan. Number 8 is Nicholas Singleton out of Penn State. Number 9 is Damien Martinez, now out of Miami. Number 10 is DJ Giddens out of Kansas State. Number 11 is Trevor Etienne out of Georgia. Number 12 is Devin Neal out of Kansas. Number 13 is Monangai out of Rutgers. Number 14 is Kaytron Allen out of Penn State. Number 15 is Joquavius Marks out of USC. Number 16 is Phil Mafah out of Clemson. Number 17 is Montrell Johnson Jr. out of Florida. Number 18 is Raheem Sanders out of South Carolina now. Number 19 is Taj Brooks out of Texas Tech. And then number 20, name from last year, you'll see Bentley the fourth out of Ole Miss. So that is how my top 20 running back rankings look for the upcoming college football season, setting the stage for the 2025 NFL draft. So now I will go through my scouting reports for each of those backs and, I'll talk about strengths, developmental areas, functional areas, how they win, NFL role, NFL draft projection. But before we get into that, as I'm screen sharing to set up the Sky Notebook, a little bit of overview of this positional group. we've done quarterbacks, we've done wide receivers, we've done tight ends. The running backs of those four positional groups is the clear class of the 2025 class. Far and away the most high-end talent relative to the position. Obviously, we have to understand. But when you watch these running backs, you're talking about guys. We could have guys potentially pushed to be round 1 picks. We are going to have a lot of guys, I think, potentially pushed to be round 2 picks. We're going to have tons of guys on the round 3, round 4 border. Some of them will go round 3. Some of them will go early day 3. But we're talking like, you're going to see people have like day 2 grades or better on like 10, 11, 12 prospects. Now, obviously, we're not going to get that many running backs in the top 100 picks. But in terms of draft grades, in terms of how these running backs stack up, you're going to see people have maybe 10, 12 different running backs who could potentially have a top 100 grade. That's how strong of a class this is. Not everyone will go back. There's underclassmen on this list who might end up going back to school. We saw last year with TreVeyon, Henderson, and others. So things change. But what about other people could emerge? Guys who I have an early day 3 grade on right now could emerge to be potentially top 100 grades. Guys who I didn't even scout, who come out of nowhere could potentially have a top 100 grade. So it is going to be a really, really strong class, especially considering after, this past class with Jonathan Brooks and Trey Benson, the only 2 guys who I thought were definitive top 100 talents. We're going to see a very big shift going into next year. So let's get right into it. We're going to start with my number 1 ranked running back. And as I alluded to already, that is Ashton Jeanty out of Boise State. He's a junior, 5'8", 217 pounds. Last year, he had 1,347 yards rushing, 14 touchdowns, 43 receptions, 569 yards, and 5 touchdowns. We're talking about a prospect in Jeanty, average size, good frame, very good athleticism, speed, acceleration, burst, movement skills, vision, footwork, agility, change of direction skills, and elusiveness. Very good play strength, contact balance to force missed tackles in a variety of ways, great receiving skills and hands. We're talking about a starting running back capable of playing on all 3 downs, versatile enough for any run scheme you want to do inside, or zone or gap. You want to do outside zone or gap. He can run in any running scheme. Very versatile player. I think he's a round 1, early round 2 prospect. Things that I'm looking for this year, obviously, playing for Boise State, the level of competition in terms of the defenses, it is something that we at least got to acknowledge and bring up. I want to see when Boise State does get the opportunity to play an inferior team, how does he look in terms of his overall production? He's got a couple ball security issues I want to see cleaned up, and his overall pass protection. Those would be the things that I'd be looking for him to improve upon this year heading into the 2025 NFL draft. But we're talking about a prospect in Jeanty who, for me, he kind of stands alone as my top back. A lot of really other talented backs in this class, but in terms of the 3-down skill set and the versatility that Jeanty brings, he sits atop for me, and a little bit of separation between him and every other back in this class. I was really impressed with what I saw on him in film. I think he could easily translate to the next level, and I am not worried about the level of competition thing when it comes to him as an overall prospect, because he's got the package of athleticism, the size, the frame, in terms of how he can make people miss, how he can create miss forced tackles. He does it in a variety of ways, and I think that's the intrigue to him, not only his versatility, but the complete package that he offers. My second prospect is Omarion Hampton out of North Carolina. Obviously, anybody who followed North Carolina closely last year, as I watched Drake May, had to come away impressed with Omarion Hampton. He's the junior out of UNC, 6 feet tall, 219 pounds, very good size and frame, good athleticism, burst, speed, acceleration, and short area quickness, especially when you consider at that 6 feet tall, 219-pound frame. Very good play strength, power, physicality, shows really good leg drive, finishing ability, and contact balance to break tackles and force missed tackles. He's got good footwork with the ability to one cut and jump cut to get up the field quickly. The receiving skills, he's got receiving production. I think the receiving skills are probably just average. To me, he's a starting running back capable of playing on all three downs, best in an inside gap run scheme, can do some zone stuff with him as well. But I don't think the vision is, good enough just yet. I think it's a functional area, but I just think, power gap scheme inside it with the ability to kick sometimes out to the outside, it best suits Omarion Hampton's game. I have an early round 2 grade on him. Things I want to kind of see from him this year as he continues to develop and refine his overall game. He had some ball security issues in the past. Want to see him clean that up completely. He's not going to be a guy who's a very creative runner in terms of make you miss in the phone booth. Not a lot of, sharp change of direction stuff. The agility, the elusiveness. You don't see a lot of that from his game. And I would like to see a little bit more vary in terms of his overall run tempo. I do think it's a little bit more one speed, and I think it would benefit him if he shows a little more vary in that run tempo. But I really like Hampton's game. He's my number 2 running back. Like I said, Jeanty is kind of in his own tier. Hampton starts my next tier that has a couple of names in it. That third guy who I'm going to take this to is Ollie Gordon. Ollie Gordon II, out of Oklahoma State. He's a junior, 6'1", 215 pounds. Last year, he had 1,732 yards rushing, 21 touchdowns, 39 receptions, and 330 yards. We're talking about a guy, good size, average frame, good athleticism, speed burst, and acceleration, especially at 6'1", 215. Very good movement skills, footwork, vision, agility, and one-cut, jump-cut ability to force missed tackles, to pick up extra yards, or create a big play. Good receiving skills, average play strength, power, and physicality. You watch Ollie Gordon play, and it just doesn't seem like a man 6'1", 215 should have as quick feet as you see Ollie Gordon. He makes people miss in tight spaces like you would expect a much, much, much smaller running back. He does it at 6'1", 215. I can't tell you how much I'm impressed with the overall movement skills, the footwork, the vision, and that agility when he reads the defenses to see, and reacts to them. And then that one cut and jump cut ability to make a big play, to force a missed tackle. It's really impressive for a man his size. I do think sometimes he runs a little bit upright, so I think there's some inconsistent pad level and finishing ability. I'd like to see him be a little bit more nuanced in terms of being a zone runner as well. So I think there's some inconsistencies when he's asked to run zone concepts. I want to see him clean up some pass protection technique issues as well. But to me, Gordon is a starting running back capable of playing on all 3 downs, best in an inside gap or zone run scheme, but he can play, he can get to the outside as well, as I talked about. But a lot to like about Ollie Gordon's overall game. I have an early round 2 grade on him as well. So for me, it's kind of has Jeanty in his own tier, Hampton and Ollie Gordon in that next tier for me. So that's kind of my top 3. Jeanty's own tier, Gordon and Hampton in that second tier. Let's take this to my 4th ranked prospect, and that is Quinshon Judkins, formerly of Ole Miss, now of Ohio State, forming a 1-2 duo with TreVeyon Henderson, who I will get to momentarily. But Quinshon Judkins, the junior out of Ohio State, now 5'11", 219 pounds. Last year for Ole Miss, 1,158 yards rushing, 15 touchdowns, 22 receptions, 149 yards receiving. Good size and frame. I think the athleticism and long speed is just average, but he's got good movement skills, short area quickness and bursts, and footwork with the ability to one cut and get up the field very quickly. He's got very good to great vision, contact balance, play strength, power, physicality, leg drive, and finishing ability to force missed tackles and gain extra yards. That to me is Judkins' calling card. That footwork, the short area quickness, and the vision, and then that combination of play strength, power, contact balance to absorb contact, to run through contact, to force missed tackles. there's a lot to overall like about Quinshon Judkins' game. I do have some athletic concerns in terms of his high-end athleticism. I do think he lacks like the explosiveness to be a big play threat. So I'm interested to see if we see any more of that in Ohio State, where he'll probably be running behind his best offensive line he's ever had. I want to see him show out a little bit better in pass protection, because I do think he's got the size and the frame and the play strength and demeanor to be, a functional pass protector. But I kind of want to see more this year. And then the receiving skills. Like I think it's something that we'd like to see him. I do think he has 3-down upside, but we haven't seen a lot in terms of what teams have asked him to do in terms of his receiving game. But I do think he's starting running back, capable of playing all 3 downs. To me, he's best in an inside gap or zone run scheme where he could really maximize his skill set. I have a round 2 grade on him. I do think, for me, Gordon and Hampton are a slight tier above. I think I'd kind of have them more as an early round 2 grade. I think Quinshon Judkins for me would be more like mid to late round 2, which is still, we started out with where the first running back came off the board. So I like Quinshon Judkins' game a lot. Like he if he was in this past draft class, he probably would have been my favorite running back, right there with Trey Benson. He would have been right there with Benson and Jonathan Brooks for me. So I still regard him very highly. I just do have those other 3 guys from this class ahead of him, and think that the NFL could value their overall package slightly more than Judkins. But, watching him now at Ohio State could really, move the needle in terms of where his draft stock goes for sure. My 5th ranked running back is now Quinshon Judkins' teammate, and that is TreVeyon Henderson, who we thought was going to come out last year, didn't end up coming back. So Henderson out of Ohio State, he's the senior now, 5'10", 206 pounds. Last year, he had 926 yards, 11 touchdowns, 19 receptions, 229 yards receiving. Average size and frame, very good to great athleticism, speed. He's got stop-start acceleration. He's got burst. He's got lateral quickness and explosiveness. Very good footwork, agility, change of direction skills, cutting ability, and elusiveness in the open field. Good play strength and contact balance. Henderson is still that guy. We've seen some inconsistency over the years after he had that unbelievable opening act as a freshman, but there's a lot to still like about Henderson's game. Obviously, over the last couple of years, there's been some inconsistent production. I think that also comes with some inconsistent decision-making and vision and patience at times. He's had some durability and injury concerns as well, but now you pair him with Judkins. He's not going to be asked to be the bell cow. And I think you potentially could see an explosive year again from TreVeyon Henderson. To me, he could be a lead of a committee back at the next level. Outside zone run scheme, I think, maximizes and caters to his skill set best. I have a day 2 grade on him. I kind of have Judkins and Henderson in a tier themselves. I think they could be like somewhere in that mid round 2 to late round 2 mix. I don't know if we're going to get 5 running backs in the first 64 picks. So would it stun me if somebody falls to the early 3rd round? No, not at all. But Henderson and Judkins are in the same tier for me, even though their skill sets are very different in terms of their calling cards, in terms of how they win. But 2 really intriguing prospects. Watching them paired in that backfield together, I think it's going to be really interesting. We almost never have 2 guys at the same time draft eligible in a backfield like this. Henderson and Judkins, it's going to be fun to kind of follow them closely. Next up, Jaydn Ott out of California. This is one of my guys, and I feel like I talked about him last year, in the Devy slant during the in-season shows. I feel like I'm going to be higher on him than just about anybody out there on draft Twitter. Ott is the junior out of Cal, 5'11", 210 pounds. He's had really 2 productive, seasons so far as a freshman and sophomore. Last year, he had 1,305 yards rushing, 12 touchdowns, 26 receptions, 196 yards, and 2 touchdowns. The year previously, he had like 48 catches. So we're talking about a guy who's definitely productive in the pass game as well. I look at him as a guy who I think could be the lead of a committee backfield, capable of playing on all 3 downs, best in an inside, outside, gap run scheme. Could also play in zone. I have a round 3 grade on him as well. To me, average size and frame, very good athleticism, speed, lateral quickness, acceleration, and burst. I see good footwork, change of direction skills, agility and elusiveness with the ability to one cut or jump cut and force missed tackles. great receiving skills, average play strength, and contact balance. But we're talking about a guy in Ott who's a big play waiting to happen. He does have a little bit of an upright running style. You're not going to, and so I want to see that kind of maybe the pad level and this is general running style be a little bit more compact this year, a little lower to the ground. You don't see him making a lot of sharp cuts while maintaining speed. Obviously, he's very athletic. He can do a lot, agility, elusiveness, but it's more one cut or jump cut. You don't see him make those sharp cuts repeatedly in one run while maintaining speed. And I want to see some pass protection issues. There is some, especially I think it's the size, the frame, the athleticism, and the uprightness a little bit. There is a little bit of college Trevor Hubbard to his game. But that's not a knock on him. Trevor Hubbard was a really intriguing college player. I like Ott better than that. But if you think back on what Trevor Hubbard was coming into the league, there were some concerns about his little bit of upright running style and his pad level, but highly explosive player. I see that from Ott as well. Next up, my 7th rated running back, a guy who I was very high on last year. I thought he could have been RB1 in last year's class. And that is Donovan Edwards out of Michigan. Last year, obviously, he formed a duo with Blake Corum. And a lot of people thought after his freshman year that Edwards could emerge last year as the best running back on that team. That did not materialize, but the skill set that had me so intrigued last year is still there, even though he just had an inconsistent sophomore season. But Edwards now, as a senior out of Michigan, 5'11", 210 pounds, 497 yards last year only, 5 touchdowns. He had 30 receptions for 249 yards. So a very down year compared to what we had seen in his sophomore year, the year before. But I still look at him as a guy who's got round 3 talent, lead of a committee backfield, capable of playing on all 3 downs. I think he's best in an inside or outside zone run scheme where he really can use that athleticism and use that lateral quickness. There's things that I want to see him improve upon this year. Obviously, more consistency, in this year. So very inconsistent junior season last year for Donovan Edwards. Contact balance concerns, power concerns, picking up extra yards after contact. Those are all areas for Donovan Edwards where I do really think we need to see him improve a lot at the next level. But I do think he has it in his arsenal. And what makes me so intrigued by him still is the high-end traits that he does possess. We're talking about a guy, good size, average frame, but I think athleticism, great, speed, great, movement skills, great, explosiveness, acceleration, and burst, all to me classify as great when we've seen Edwards at his best. Very good footwork, lateral quickness. He's got cutting ability. He's got agility and elusiveness to make people miss in the open field. When he's at his best, we see good vision and patience and a really effective pass catcher and receiving threat as well. So I can't quit Donovan Edwards yet. I know coming off the film of just last year, there was a lot of inconsistencies, but I think he's going to get every opportunity this year as the guy in that Michigan offense to reemerge himself as maybe even a top 50 or top 60 picks, maybe even push his way into round 2 and leapfrog some of the guys I've already talked about on this. Guys like TreVeyon Henderson, Quinshon Judkins, Jaydn Ott. If Donovan Edwards gets back to who we thought he could be last year and gets back to that, I do think his package could intrigue NFL teams even more than some of those guys I've talked about as well. Number 8 running back is Nicholas Singleton out of Penn State. If you're a Devy player, you know Nicholas Singleton. He was the number 1 high school running back recruit in his draft class. He bursted onto the scene with a tremendous freshman year. Last year, a little bit more of an inconsistent season from Nicholas Singleton. A lot of it was to do with that Penn State, inept offense. But let's talk about him a little bit. So Nicholas Singleton, the junior out of Penn State, he's 6 feet tall, 225 pounds. Last year, he rushed for 752 yards and 8 touchdowns, 26 receptions, 308 yards, and 2 touchdowns. I think he could still be the lead of a committee backfield, capable of playing on all 3 downs. I think he's best in an inside gap or run scheme. To me, I have a round 3 grade on him right now. There's a lot of similarities between Singleton and Donovan Edwards in terms of maybe not living up to the hype last year and looking for them to bounce back in this year. Singleton his junior year, Edwards his senior year. But their traits are very high end, their character, what they offer. So I believe in both of these guys still. Singleton has good size and frame, very good athleticism, speed, acceleration, and burst. He's got good footwork with jump cut ability to force missed tackles. He's got play strength, contact balance, leg drive, good receiver out of the backfield. I think the vision and patience is just about average. Things that I want to see Singleton improve upon. First, an overall more consistent year. Inconsistent sophomore season, some inconsistencies in terms of his natural run instincts and understanding of things. I want to see that. I want to see him vary his run tempo a little bit. I've talked about that a little bit tonight. I think it's something that I do look for when I'm evaluating running backs, and I don't think you see him vary his run tempo that much. You don't see a lot of change of direction, sharp cuts, elusiveness stuff. You see that one cut or jump cut, but not a guy who's going to make a lot of people miss in tight spaces. So those are some things I'd like to see. I'd also like to see him maybe separate himself a little bit from his running mate there, Kaytron Allen, who I'm going to talk about in a little bit. But I want to watch a Penn State game and see Singleton, pop a little bit more. And it's clear there's Singleton, there's Kaytron Allen, because there is a difference. These guys are kind of tied at the hip. They came in together. They've been very similar in terms of statistics, but I do think Singleton pops more. I want to see those traits pop out that anybody could watch a Penn State game and even if you've never seen these guys, be like, oh, that must be Singleton. That's the guy who looks like he's got more NFL traits that pop. And I do think Singleton has that in his repertoire to kind of show it this year and get back to being that guy who's got top 100 upside for sure. Next up, my number 9th ranked running back, and that is Damien Martinez out of Miami now. So Martinez, really intriguing prospect, transferred from Oregon State. He's a junior now in Miami, 6 feet tall, 240 pounds. Last year for Oregon State, he rushed for 1,185 yards, 9 touchdowns. He only had 11 receptions for 126 yards. I look at Martinez, I see the lead of a committee backfield on early downs. That's in an inside power gap or zone run scheme. I have a late round 3, early round 4 grade on him right now. I look at him, great size and frame. I mean, the frame is almost rare, 240. You don't see that anymore. Average athleticism, movement skills, and speed. That's not his calling card, but for a man 240, I think it's functional enough. Good footwork and short area bursts and quickness with the ability to one cut. Very good vision, play strength, power, toughness, physicality, leg drive, and finishing ability to force missed tackles. You watch Damien Martinez play, and I don't think you would look at him and think that's a 240-pound guy moving. I know I talked about Ollie Gordon before. Listen, there's a big difference between Ollie Gordon's weight and Damien Martinez's weight, but both of these guys, the footwork and how quick they move their feet for bigger guys, I think is really impressive. Things that I would obviously like to see improve upon this year, the receiving production. Can he be more than an early down, between the tackles runner and short yardage runner? Got to see more receiving production, got to see some more receiving skills. For a guy 6 feet 240, he's got to be a good pass protector. That should not be an issue. He's got the size, he's got the frame, he's got to clean up his techniques to be functional in pass protection. You don't see a lot of lateral quickness. As again, opportunity this year to show anything more in terms of his lateral quickness and change of direction skills. My number 10 ranked running back is DJ Giddens out of Kansas State. I'm a fan of DJ Giddens. He's another guy that if this wasn't such a strong class, I think I'd be at the forefront of being at the DJ Giddens fan club, because there's a lot to like about the junior out of Kansas State, 6 feet tall, 215 pounds. I think he also is a guy who could be the lead of a committee backfield, capable of playing on all 3 downs, best in an inside zone or gap run scheme. I have a round 3, round 4, early round 4 grade on him right now. Very good size and frame, good athleticism, short area bursts and movement skills, average speed and acceleration, good play strength, contact balance, vision, and patience. He's got really good footwork with the ability to jump cut or one cut to force missed tackles. He's got good receiving skills that makes him possible to be a factor in the pass game, play on all three downs, things that I want to see from him. If he's going to be a guy that especially plays on third down because his pass receiving skills, he's got to clean up some pass protection issues. And you would like to see him show a little bit more in terms of his change of direction, elusiveness, lateral quickness, a little bit of an upright running style. But I really like DJ Giddens. He's a guy that I think is flying under the radar a little bit, and I think he's going to become a little bit more mainstream as you watch him play this year. I think he's going to be one of the focal points of that K-State offense, and it's going to be fun to kind of watch Giddens this year perform again, because I mean, last year, obviously a monster season last year, but I think he's a guy that could take the next step, rush for over 1,200 yards last year, 10 touchdowns, like I said, 29 receptions, 323 yards. So we're talking a guy who's got the versatility to impact the game in both ways. A lot to like about DJ Giddens' overall game. My number 11 ranked running back is Trevor Etienne out of Georgia, formerly of Florida. So now Travis Etienne's younger brother heads to Georgia to be maybe the lead back there. He's a junior out of Georgia now, formerly of Florida, 5'9", 205 pounds. Last year in 2023 for Florida, he had 753 yards rushing, 8 touchdowns, 21 receptions, and 172 yards in receiving as well. I think he's a committee backfield capable of playing all three downs, best in an outside gap or zone run scheme. I have a round 3, round 4 grade on him right now, but I do think him going to Georgia really opens up the possibility for him to take the next step in terms of, performing in the biggest moments where you look at it and you see him make a big play, and it kind of elevates his overall draft stock a little bit. Average size and frame, very good athleticism, speed, burst, stop start acceleration, lateral quickness, agility and elusiveness in the open field to make people miss, good footwork with a great jump cut while maintaining speed, above average receiving skills. Things in terms of that I'd like to see some development or some concerns. I do wonder about his frame for an increased workload. At 205, I think he's a guy that could be a part of a committee backfield. If he could add a little bit more to that frame, become 212, 215, I think it might help him in terms of carry a heavier workload at the next level. Pass protection issues, a little bit inconsistent on zone runs, inconsistent play strength and contact balance. I think he's a better gap runner right now, but I do think there's room for growth where he could also be an effective zone runner. I do think he's best on the outside relative to the inside. So I think it's something we'll see there in that Georgia. They're going to run, be an effective run team. But how does Etienne look this year? Next up, my number 12 ranked running back, and that is Devin Neal out of Kansas. Another year, this guy could be a top 5, top 6 running back. I know it's crazy to say, and I've said it a lot, but Devin Neal's a really good prospect. At the senior out of Kansas, 6 feet, 220 pounds. Last year, he rushed for 1,280 yards, 16 touchdowns, 25 receptions, 217 yards. I have an early date regrade on him, committee backfield, capable of playing on all three downs, best in an inside or outside gap run scheme, good size and frame, good to very good athleticism, speed, stop start acceleration and burst, good lateral quickness, footwork, change of direction skills, and jump cut ability to force missed tackles, average receiving skills, vision, and play strength. Some areas I want to see him improve upon, some pass protection issues, some inconsistent contact balance, and some overall patience issues that I want to see him kind of show a little bit more patience. But he's a really intriguing player. I think he's best on the inside, like I said, inside, but I think he could also run on the outside as well. To me, the gap scheme is key because there are some vision issues that pop up from here to here, even though I classified it as a functional trait. But the patience, sometimes he doesn't have that necessary patience I think that you need sometimes as a zone runner, but that could be something where he shows a little bit more consistency in that regard. Next up, my number 13th ranked running back is Kyle Monangai out of Rutgers. Monangai is a fun watch. He bowling balls, like watching pinball, basically bounce around. Monangai, the senior out of Rutgers, 5'9", 210 pounds. Last year, he rushed for 1,262 yards and 8 touchdowns. He only had 8 receptions for 78 yards. So right off the bat, obviously things that we want to have some concerns on and we want to see some development on is receiving skills. That lack of receiving production. Can he even be functional in that? Or is he just a 2-down runner like it kind of checks out right now? You don't see a lot of lateral quickness in his run game. You don't see a lot of change of directions, agility, elusiveness, sharp cuts. It's just not a part of Monangai's game. But what you do see, average size, but the frame is really good. The athleticism and long speed I would classify as average, but good footwork and short area bursts and quickness. But his calling card for Monangai, very good play strength, power, toughness, physicality, contact balance, and leg drive to break tackles, force missed tackles. He can run through people. He can run over people. He can take the hits and keep on going. Like I said, he's like a pinball bouncing around out there. Monangai, very intriguing to me player. Depth to committee backfield, playing on early downs, best in an inside gap or zone run scheme. To me, he's a better version of what Zach Moss was coming out of college. Now, I didn't love Zach Moss coming out of college. I've actually started to appreciate his game more at times in the NFL, even though he hasn't had a lot of consistent success. But I think Monangai kind of profiles very similar to a Zach Moss style player. And listen, a lot of people are really intrigued by Zach Moss this year in Cincinnati. So Monangai kind of profiles in that regards as that early down interior runner, just bouncing off people, using his power, play strength, and contact balance to be a menace for defenders to kind of take down. So I'm interested to kind of see Monangai here at Rutgers for his senior year. Next up, number 14, I kind of alluded to him before, the other Penn State running back, and that is Kaytron Allen out of Penn State. He is the 5'11", 225-pound junior. Last year, he had 902 yards rushing, 6 rushing touchdowns, 14 catches for 81 yards. To me, profiles as a committee backmate, playing on early downs, best in an inside gap or zone run scheme. I have an early day 3 grade on him. You don't see a lot of receiving skills or receiving production, so you hope to see maybe get an opportunity to do that. I think his long speed is definitely a question mark. He doesn't have that explosiveness of his teammate, Nicholas Singleton. You don't see a lot in terms of his agility, change direction, skills, and elusiveness in the open field. But what he does bring to the table, good size and frame. Like I said, the athleticism, movement skills, and speed I'd classify probably as just average. Good footwork with short area bursts and quickness, good to very good contact balance, play strength, physicality, toughness, finishing ability, and leg drive. He breaks tackles. He fights through contact. He can one cut and get up the field quickly. So I think Allen profiles more as that early down runner, definite inside run scheme. But he does have the capabilities to be a decent zone runner. I think he probably best in the gap, but as long as it's inside, I think he could be a functional back. Part of a committee duo. I don't think, there are legitimate concerns about his receiving capabilities moving forward. We just haven't seen much of it at the collegiate level. My number 15 ranked running back, a guy I talked about last year, Jokavius Marks, now out of USC, which is very intriguing. Jokavius Woody Marks. So a lot of people, he goes by Woody Marks a lot. Last year it was at Mississippi State. He's a senior, like I said, now at USC, replacing Marshawn Lloyd, who obviously went to the NFL. He's 5'10", 208 pounds. Last year he had 573 yards rushing, 4 touchdowns, 23 receptions, 167 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Don't let the 23 receptions fool you. Who Jokavius Woody Marks is. He is a pass-catching weapon at the next level. That's his role. He's going to be a pass-catching running back. Maybe could be part of a lesser part of a committee backfield. He could be a change-of-pace type guy, space player, satellite player, an overall offensive weapon in a variety of ways. He could be your returner, especially with the new kick return rules. Average size and frame, but he's got good athleticism, speed, movement skills, burst and acceleration. He's got good to very good lateral quickness, agility, elusiveness, and cutting ability in the open field. I classify his receiving skills as a great receiver. I think he could arguably, Ashton Jeanty maybe at the top. I think you can make the case that Woody Marks is probably the second best receiving weapon in right now in terms of the running backs for next year's draft class. versatile offensive piece that can impact the game as a rusher, receiver, or a returner. Like to see some development in terms of his overall vision and patience. You don't see a lot of natural run instincts, relying more on his athleticism than his vision or patience, and some pass protection issues. If he's going to be a pass catching weapon, the third down back at the next level, he's got to become a functional pass protector, because that's going to be his ticket to get on the field where he can maximize that receiving capability. Got to be able to hold up as a pass protector. Next up, my 16th ranked running back is Phil Mafah out of Clemson. The senior, 6 feet tall, 233 pounds. Mafah last year rushed for 965 yards and 13 touchdowns, 21 receptions, 108 yards. Remember, Will Shipley was still there in Clemson last year, so Mafah did that in conjunction with Shipley, which is really impressive. He's a depth to committee backfield, playing on early downs, short yardage, and a power gap inside run scheme. I have a day 3 grade on him right now. Things I want to see him improve upon: his receiving production, his receiving skills. Does he have a little bit more in terms of making people miss? His agility, elusiveness, cutting ability. Obviously those are concerns. Long speed. At 6 feet tall, 233 pounds, he's got to be a better pass protector. So those are some things I want to see improve upon, but he's got great size and frame, athleticism and movement skills I classify as average, good footwork and short area quickness and burst, very good contact balance, power, play strength, physicality, leg drive, finishing ability, picks up extra yards, he breaks tackles, he runs through contact, really grinded out type, big physical back. Mafah, intriguing day 3 pick for someone who's looking to fit that profile. Next up, my number 17th running back, and that is Montrell Johnson out of Florida. Senior, 5'11", 219 pounds. Last year, he had 817 yards rushing and 5 touchdowns, 30 receptions for 236 yards. I remember Trevor Etienne was there with him last year, so now Etienne is transferred to Georgia, so Johnson maybe looks to handle even a heavier workload this year. I think he's a depth committee backfield, playing on all 3 downs in an inside gap run scheme. Day 3 grade on him right now. Good size and frame, average athleticism, movement skills, and short area burst of quickness, good vision and patience, good contact balance, play strength, power, and leg drive, good footwork with the ability to one cut, average receiving skills. There obviously are some concerns. You don't see the long speed. It doesn't have that explosiveness that you would love at the next level. Not a lot of change of direction stuff, agility, lateral quickness. You just don't see that in terms of his package right now when watching him play. Next up, my 18th ranked running back is Raheem Rocket Sanders, now of South Carolina, formerly of Arkansas. It's hard to think that once upon a time, I can't even imagine Sanders being 18th on anybody's rankings, and some people might even have him lower than that. This was a guy that we thought there was a real possibility he could be a top 5 back when he declared, and then things just kind of didn't live up to the hype last year at Arkansas. The senior, now South Carolina, formerly of Arkansas, 6 feet tall, 241 pounds. Last year he had 209 yards rushing, only 2 touchdowns, 10 receptions for 75 yards. But the year before, in 2022, he rushed for just under 1,500 yards, 10 touchdowns, 28 receptions, 271 yards. If there's anyone that could see their stock reemerge this year, I think it's Raheem Rocket Sanders. Right now, I think he's got to be classified as a depth to committee backfield, but he is capable of playing on all 3 downs. I think he's best in an inside zone or gap run scheme. I have a day 3 grade on him because there will be traits that will intrigue NFL teams to see if he can get back to that player he was in 2021 and 2022. I want to see more in terms of change of direction, agility, cutting ability, elusiveness this year. You want to see him protect the football. He's had some ball security issues pop up in the past. But great size and frame, good athleticism, burst speed and acceleration and movement skills, good play strength, power, contact balance, and leg drive, good footwork, vision, and patience with the ability to one cut. We saw Braylon Allen last year fall a little bit in the pre-draft process, a guy who's been hyped for a long time. And then you see the impact he's had so far, the positive reports in training camp preseason. I feel like Rocket Sanders could have that kind of reemergence at some point. But if he goes out there this year and rushes for 1,200 yards, I think he starts to get talked about again, similarly to maybe how he was in the past. This is a guy who's got talent. He moves very well for a man 6 feet tall, 241 pounds. So I think the burst, the speed, the acceleration is there, the play strength, the power. So there's a lot of individual traits that I think are high end and impressive for Sanders. It's about putting the whole package together, showing more consistency this year, and can he get back to the player he looked like he was going to be earlier in his collegiate career and potentially, top 100 pick for the NFL. 19th, Taj Brooks out of Texas Tech. Talking about a productive running back last year in college football. Senior out of Texas Tech, 5'9", 231 pounds. He rushed for 965 yards and 13 touchdowns last year. He did have 29 catches, but for only 69 yards. So obviously, just very short dump-off type things. Average size, great frame, average athleticism, short area quickness and burst, but he does have good footwork, very good contact balance, play strength, power, physicality, toughness. He's got the leg drive and finishing ability to force missed tackles and pick up extra yards. To me, he's a depth committee backfield, played on early downs in an inside power gap run scheme. I have a Dave regrade on him. You don't see a lot of long speed from Brooks. You don't see, the receiving skills are not really there in terms of being a weapon at the next level. You don't see a lot of make you miss stuff, change of direction, agility, elusiveness, or cutting ability right now. And my 20th ranked running back is U.S.L. Bentley out of Ole Miss. Bentley was a guy I talked about last year. Senior out of Ole Miss now, 5'9", 195 pounds. He had 540 yards rushing last year, 4 touchdowns, 11 receptions, 87 yards, and a touchdown. He's a depth running back, change of pace, best in an outside zone run scheme. I got a late date regrade on him, or UDFA. Average size and frame, average long speed, good athleticism, movement skills, burst, acceleration, and lateral quickness. Good to very good footwork, agility, change direction skills, cutting ability, and elusiveness with good vision and patience. So there it is, guys. My top 20 running backs for the 2025 NFL draft heading into the college football season. There's guys on my watch list that I am very intrigued with, who I didn't even do a deep dive on yet for a variety of reasons. I have my eyes solely on Jaydn Blue out of Texas. I think he could be a guy who really emerges. Chip Triman out of Kentucky. Another guy, Roydell Williams out of Florida State. Jarquez Hunter out of Auburn. Those are probably the 4 guys on my watch list that I'm most intrigued with. And the guys who I could see getting into the notebook sooner rather than later, once I get some more film on these guys. But those are guys that are very intriguing. Have them on as part of the watch list, with stars basically next to them mentally in my head to keep a close eye on them as the college football season kicks off. So there it is, guys. If you've been enjoying these summer scouting episodes, please get over to the website, ssfootball.com. It's the fastest and easiest way to get to the site. Check out our premium content tab. We will soon turn the page within the next week or so to get the 2025 premium notebooks. You will immediately get access to the rankings notebook, which will have all my rankings for draft eligible 2025 prospects, running backs, quarterbacks, wide receivers, and tight ends. You will get my Devy rankings. You'll get my dynasty rookie rankings updated throughout the year based, after every week. I'm tinkering with those dynasty rookie rankings based on what happens in the NFL. I'll be tinkering with my draft eligible rankings on a weekly basis. Same thing with my Devy rankings. I'll be adding new people to the mix. It also has my positional overall dynasty rankings in that. So that's just the rankings notebook. You get access to that immediately. And then you get the scouting notebook. If you've been watching on YouTube, you've seen me share the scouting notebook a lot in terms of these scouting reports and scouting profiles. I mean, it already has close to 90 prospects in it. They will be updated and edited, throughout the college football season. Tons and tons of more prospects will be added to it, whether it's during the season, a few here or there, and then obviously a whole bunch during the pre-draft process. When I see who else I need to add to the mix that could be relevant for the 2025 NFL draft. And that Sky Notebook, you get everything: the strengths, functional areas, developmental areas, NFL role, how they fit, NFL draft projection, and also something I don't get into on the podcast, a fantasy span where I say what I think their fantasy ceiling is long term. If they hit that ceiling, get a real opportunity to be a starter or top three, a wide receiver, starting quarterback, starting tight end, stuff like that. You get what I think their fantasy ceiling could be at the next level. You get both of those immediately, and then you would get the 2025 draft projections notebook in April of next year as well. You get all of them for $9.99, guys. You pay $9.99 once. You get an email sent to you that gives you links to all three of these notebooks as well. So go back, check out all the summer scouting episodes, have you set up, give you a leg up for your Devy leagues, your dynasty drafts next year in terms of your rookie draft, and just get you set and ready for the college football season. Like I said, I have an episode upcoming next here at Saturday Sunday with the great Dane Brugler of The Athletic. We're going to talk about a lot of these prospects that I hit upon over the last 4 episodes in my summer scouting. And we get to pick Dane's brain a little bit about these prospects, because like I said, there is nobody in the business better than Dane Brugler at scouting these college prospects. So it'll be an honor to have him back on the show, talking to him before the college football season really kicks into high gear with that week 1 a little over a week away. But we get the little appetizer upcoming with week 0. So that'll be fun in its own right. So on behalf of our sound tech engineer, David Nicano, and myself, thank you for joining us. And we look forward next time taking you from Saturday to Sunday.